So we're back again on the sofa, having a chat, this time about costs and where we get our cost data from in order to put into our cash flow forecast, right? Yesterday we talked about where we got the sales and the collection forecast from, and today we're going to be looking at costs. Well, costs were going to be broken down into three sort of main subjects or main areas, right? It's going to be material cost, it's going to be labor, and it's going to be overhead. So material cost is quite straightforward. You kind of know how much money you're going to be paying in order to buy the inventory to do the sales, right? And you know that if I'm going to be expected to sell so much goods, then I would be able to figure out how much inventory I have in place and how much more I'm going to have to spend, right, in order to procure new elements of inventory so that you can make the goods in order to sell them, right? And that's why we always start off with sales. Even when you'll do a budget, you always start off with sales because sales is your driver. Sales will drive everything else, and it definitely drives the direct costs, which are your material elements. So you'd kind of sit there and say, well, I'm expecting to sell every month 10,000 units of product A, 15,000 units of product B, whatever. And this is providing you make something. You're not a service, so to speak. You actually make something. You either do some sort of construction, or you do some sort of manufacturing, or even, let's say you're selling something in retail, because you still have to buy the stuff. You have to buy the stock in order to sell it, right? So you're going to look at what you're going to be selling and the sales profile for each of the products that you're going to be selling, and you're going to break down what the material element of that is going to be. You're going to look at the inventory that you've got in place, and you need to figure out how much of that inventory will cover the sales that you have. It may be only half a month's worth of sales, it may be a month, maybe 2 months, especially if you've overstocked. And you're going to have to say, well, okay, that's going to take care of that 2 months worth of sales, but now I'm going to have to buy more inventory to cover the remaining period, so of the forecast. The forecasted sales. So you're going to factor that in, and you're going to have to do your own calculations in order to determine how much of it you're going to buy. And then you've probably got a major main supplier, right? And you've got terms and conditions associated with what you buy. Now, hopefully, you don't have anything where you have to pay any money in advance. Because if you pay money in advance, you really are, you're cash negative immediately, right? And you've got to have a certain amount of buffer of cash reserves in order to purchase that. So hopefully you're not in that situation. Hopefully you've got some credit terms. Hopefully you've done some business with a supplier, and they've given you some credit terms. So you're going to get the stock, and maybe your credit terms are going to be 30 days. And you're going to factor that into your forecast. And you're going to look at your forecast and you're going to pull that out, right? And so you're going to say, well, I'm going to take delivery of the goods on this particular day. I'm going to get an invoice at the end of the month. I'm going to be paying that invoice 30 days down the line. And that's how you're going to forecast it for each of your materials that you buy. If you only buy one set of materials, it's quite easy. But if you're buying a whole bunch of materials in order to produce your product, then it becomes a little bit more complicated, and you've probably got some systems in place in order to manage that. Otherwise, when you look at your production scheduling type of activities, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare if you don't have that production plan in place in order to manage what you're committed to sell to your customers, right? The second part of it is your labor. Now, labor should be quite straightforward. You know what your labor profile is right now. And are you expected to bring any more people in over the remaining period of the forecast? Well, if you are, then of course you're going to take what your base labor is right now, labor cost right now, and you're going to add that additional cost in as and when. So if you're going to bring in, let's say you're thinking of expanding, and you're going to be expanding, let's say you're doing your forecast at the end of March, you're going to be expanding in June or July, then you're going to keep your current labor cost in place for April, May, and now if you're expanding in June, then you'll have the additional labor coming in June on top of your current labor cost, right? And you're going to forecast that out remaining for the rest of the year. And now if you've got, when it comes to your overhead costs, well, like we talked about in the developing of the cash flow with overheads, or putting the overhead cost into the cash flow forecast, overheads can come in different ways. You can have insurances, you can have rent, which is a big one, right? And you're going to have other types of costs, which is your, you're going to have your stationary type costs, motor type costs, electricity, whatever that keeps you going, your utilities and those sorts of things. So you're going to have to factor those in. Normally, if you're looking at utilities and you're looking at telecommunication costs, and you kind of look at your vehicle costs or motor costs and whatever, you normally have a set amount that you pay every month, right? And you can look back over previous periods and you'll kind of go, oh well, I'm going to factor in a similar sort of amount, and they shouldn't vary that much. And if they do, it's not going to be show-stopping. But when it comes down to insurances and it comes down to rent and things like that, where you're paying in advance, you go back to your previous stage and you sort of say, okay, so if I normally pay every quarter for my rent, then I'm going to be paying the quarterly amount in advance, let's say in April, and I factor the full amount in there. And then the next time I'm going to be paying the full quarterly amount in advance, let's say in June, I'm going to factor the amount in there, so that you're matching the payment periods into your forecast. You're not kind of flattening it as you do in a profit and loss account. So I hope that kind of makes sense about where you get the numbers from. It's the more you do it, the easier it becomes, especially when it comes down to materials, because materials is going to be your major cost along with labor. And labor is quite straightforward because you pay in the month in which the labor is incurred, right? You don't pay them 30 days after they've worked. You kind of, as soon as you get to the end of the month, you pay them. Pretty straightforward. The only thing you have to take into account there is if I'm going to increase my labor and when am I going to increase my labor, and then you factor that in. And then when you pull all of that together and you combine all of your cost profile, payment profile, against your sales collection profile, then we're going to be able to see where those cash stress points are, isn't it? Because this is what we talked about when we pulled the total cash forecast together. You're going to be able to see where you start to eat into any cash reserves that you say that you want to keep, or where you're going to get close to zero cash or go cash negative as a bank balance, maybe go into an overdraft position or whatever, based on your forecast. Then what you're going to be able to do is look at your payment profiles initially, and you're going to say, what can I do in order to delay payment if possible? And there are tricks that you can do in order to delay payments. Yeah. I used to work in a company one time when we were so strapped for cash that we used to have what was called a payment parliament, where we would sit down at the beginning of every week and we'd say, what customers do we have to pay today or this week? And we'd pull them all out and we'd say this one, this one, this one, this one. And we would say which one would put us on stop if we don't pay them, right? And we would only pay the ones, right, that would put us on stop. If we had 10 major customers, and out of them, 4 of them would put us on stop if we didn't pay. Then, I know it's an awful thing to say, but it's the truth. This is how we used to manage the cash. We would turn around and we'd go, okay, well, those 4 are going to put us on stop if we don't pay them. We have to pay those. Boosh, gone. Out of the others, are they going to put us on stop? No. Okay, let's delay it till next week. And we would push those payments out as long as we could in order to maintain the cash within the business for as long as we could. And you're kind of juggling that as you go along. But you can't do it unless you do a cash flow forecast. Because when you do the cash flow forecast and you pull all of it together, the collections and the cost payments together, then you get to see where you're going to be in a cash stress position, have those cash stress positions. And it's only by doing that then you will look at your forecast and you'd say, okay, in those days, what big customers are we going to be paying? What have we got to be paid? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that one will put us on stop, we have to pay him. That one will put us on stop, we have to pay him. That one will put us on stop, we have to pay him. All the rest can go whistle. They're not going to get paid. We're going to keep that money within the business because we need it, because we don't know what will happen, and we just want to maintain the cash there, and we will manage the rest of them on another day. And that's what you do. You kind of juggle that around in order to maintain your cash positions. Especially, let's say, if you've got a big rental cost payment coming up, and you're looking and you sort of say, oh my God, I got to pay what? I don't know, 50,000 in rent. Oh no. Okay, now you'll start juggling in order to make sure that you've got the money available plus a cash buffer in order to manage that payment. So you kind of get that feel for what's coming, what's going to go out, and how you can, and which customers or which suppliers you can delay and which suppliers you can't. You'd look at the customers and you'll say, just like we talked about, customer A may be a huge customer, but he's not paying on the 30 days. He's paying 80% or 70% after 45 days and the remaining after 60. Then you'd go back and you'd start to have a conversation with him, because it's putting you into a cash stressful position in your business. So you need to manage that, right? So I hope that kind of makes sense, how it pull all those data together, where you get the data from, how you then manage it going forward. Like I said, I cover this in more detail in the course that I do. I keep peddling the course. Nobody wants it. I don't know why, because it's a really good course. I did work hard on this course and it will help. I put every bit of idea that I had into this course and it will help. And the people who have taken the course, I joke about nobody wants it. People have taken the course and they've said it's helped them a lot. It's helped them a lot with understanding their business, and it's helped them a lot with understanding their cash profile, and it's helped them a lot in their knowledge base as well and how to do it. They become more self-sufficient and they don't have to rely on others to do this activity for you. You get to understand and you get to realize that this is a very important part of your business. So the course is there. Have a look at it. Click on the link. Have a look. There's no obligation. The link will take you to another page where it goes into the course in more detail, and there's an option to either buy it immediately or have a conversation, book an appointment with me to have a conversation so we can talk about your business in more detail. There's also the book. The link is there. That's a pay-as-you-want type affair. And there's also my blog, where I blog about everything cash management and stuff like that. Anyway, I hope whoever's watching this takes advantage of it and See you tomorrow, where we'll talk about a little bit of honesty, I think. A little bit of honesty on certain situations about why it's important. And I'll tell you a story that happened to a friend of mine and how it ruined him by not managing his cash. That's it. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.